Good morning. Welcome back to the channel. Doing something totally different from what you've seen on this channel before. Sounded like somebody outside. So we're going to be doing some baking today. But you might notice this is not the typical kitchen that you see in your baking videos. We're actually in a motorhome. So, quick overview. Here's the entirety of the kitchen space. So we'll be doing some baking in here as we go along. We'll cover some of the challenges and obstacles to baking in small kitchens and on the road. But for today, we're just going to do kind of a test run on the kitchen. Make sure everything's working, because I have baked in this kitchen just once, and got the oven preheating here. Not entirely sure how accurate that is, so I got the thermometer in there to make sure the temperature's right. Okay, so you're probably wondering, and I've had others ask already, can't I just use chocolate chips and get the same thing? And the answer is yes and no. You can use chocolate chips if you can get good ones that are actually chocolate. You can do that by looking at the back of the package at the ingredients and make sure that it actually has cocoa butter in it. A lot of the chips out there are not chocolate. So assuming you get good ones that are actually chocolate, they will work in the recipe, but they won't be quite the same, because you don't get the texture that you get when you chop up the chocolate. You get the different sized chunks and pieces, and you also get these nice little ribbon pieces as you chop it up. And what those do is they're so small, they mix in all through the batter, and you get a little bit of chocolate all through the cookie. So that is actually not just a texture difference in the chocolate when you get a piece of chocolate in the cookie, it's also a texture difference in the cookie itself. Depending obviously on how much of that you have in there, it's going to be a softer cookie. It's going to have a light chocolate hint all through the dough and in turn in the cookies. And obviously how much these break apart is gonna be determined by your knife. I kind of wish I had my nice knives right now, but I spent, like I said before, I spent a lot of money setting all this up, and I had to make some sacrifices on stuff that can wait until later. So some better knives will happen in the future. This one is actually a good, decent knife. It's just, for whatever reason, it wasn't exactly as sharp as I was expecting it to be. So you don't need to scrape the plastic off of the board to get all the chocolate, but get as much of this dust, as much of this stuff that you can off of there, because that's what I was talking about, that mixes in with the batter. And pro tip, if you don't want your eggs to roll off on the floor, and you have a nice stove like this that comes built with built-in egg holders so that you can keep your eggs from rolling off onto the floor. So let's run through the ingredients really quick here. To start with is 113 grams of butter, which is 1 stick. I've found it's not always, they mass produce these things, so ooh, this is a new tripod I'm playing with here, and apparently it's not tight. Anyway, as I was saying, they're not always exact on the 113 grams. So what you want is you got butter, 113 grams, 1 stick, and then we have lard here. You want to add that to the butter to get 208 grams. So depending on if you have exactly 113 or not, will vary that slightly. The next one up is we have 96 grams of molasses, and it's in here with my brown sugar, which is 288 grams. And then we have the flour. The recipe calls for 336 grams of all-purpose flour. I'm using Bob's Red Mill 1-to-1 baking mix, which is 415 grams. If you want to use a gluten-free flour mix, I recommend this one, but just make sure you go off of the 336 grams and convert it using your flour's directions. And then we have soda and salt. 10 grams of baking soda, 1 gram of salt, and then of course the 3 eggs. And what these are is these are 3 100-gram bars each of dark chocolate and milk chocolate. And I'm not certifying this as a gluten-free cookie or selling it as a gluten-free cookie, but if you want to have certified gluten-free, obviously you need to make sure everything, which includes the chocolate. This one here is not a certified gluten-free chocolate. So you don't have to make this gluten-free, obviously. Like I said, just use the regular all-purpose flour. And then you have, regular cookies. But the nice thing is with the Bob Red Mill 1-to-1, most of the time nobody would know it's gluten-free flour unless you told them. So now we need to get out the mixer and we'll start mixing this up. So I got to clean up my workspace. That's one thing with the small RV kitchen is you don't get a lot of workstations. So I've got to clean up this one and set it up for the next task. Okay, so I've got the mixer set up here, and I just noticed I dribbled all over the place because molasses is so fun. But I've got the sugar and molasses, the peanut butter and the fats all in here. So now we're going to close this down and cream this. If I can figure out how to do it. This is a new mixer I'm not used to working with here. So starting to incorporate. Once it's good and incorporated, you can bring up the speed. I don't know if you can hear me at all because this is pretty loud. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and scrape the bowl down and make sure that all of this stuff gets in. So with the molasses in here, the sugar, it makes a really thick paste, so you get this, like it doesn't just scrape off. You got to kind of work it off of there. You want to go ahead and make sure you get that into the cookie dough, because that is texture and flavor in the molasses. So, and it's going to be all through here. So after this first scrape, it won't be an issue because it's really just where it got pushed into the bowl when you first start mixing it. And you may not have that problem at all if it's a glass bowl. And then once we get this scraped, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back on and cream it a little more and get it nice and fluffy. Okay, what you're looking for when you're creaming that is, it's basically the same thing as when you're just creaming the butter and sugar in a recipe. I'm trying to get my screen back on so I can see what you're seeing. Oh, come on. No, it doesn't want to stand up because I moved it. You want it to be light and fluffy. It's not going to be quite as light and fluffy looking as just the butter and sugar mix. Oh man, I was hoping to get that off of there and show you. Here we are. But you'll see it's paler color. I've got chocolate all over my hand. So it'll get pale and it'll get light and it'll get kind of a whipped cream looking texture to it. Not so much as when it's just the butter and sugar, because you have the heavier peanut butter in there and it's not going to get quite as light. Now, if you wanted, you could just put the sugar and the butter in there and whip it and get it nice and creamy and fluffy and then start adding everything else. But in the end, it's not really going to make any difference, because when you add all this stuff, it's going to deflate that somewhat anyway. And that's basically what you're doing, is you're just creaming in some air and lightening up the texture. So we'll kind of scrape the bowl down into the bottom so we have everything down there, and then we will move on to the next step. Okay, so now we've got our creamed mixture in here. We're going to go ahead and add the eggs individually. It doesn't have to be exact, but just bring it in on a low speed here. What you want to watch is and make sure your yolk gets incorporated before you add the next. You see they have a tendency to just ride around in there. There we go, and then we can go ahead and dump this last one in there. And then go ahead and take this up. And you want to watch for it to be fully incorporated. And then bring up the speed and mix it until you get this nice homogeneous mixture. You can do this by hand or with a hand mixer. Just a little more of a thick batter for doing it by hand. It's a little bit more of a challenge. So now, let me see if you'll notice you got a lot of clumps and stuff in your flour. If you want, you can sift it. It's not really necessary for this recipe. And then in here I've got my baking soda and my salt. We're just going to add those in. And then we'll just go ahead and whisk this together. And that will help it make sure that those are all through the flour mix. It'll reduce the chances of somebody getting a cookie with a really big blast of salt or baking soda in it. And it also will break down those clumps of flour. We'll just add this all in here. And part of the whole process of setting all this up, it was going through my little box of 3x5 cards and transcribing them all into this notebook. So every one of these, I just had my hands on, read, and copied. So I have a few extra recipes rolling around in my head at the moment. So we've got everything in there. We're going to go ahead and close this up. And then we're going to take a slow speed so that we don't just blow all this everywhere. And we want to just mix it until it's incorporated. And then we'll take it up a notch. And then we want to go just until everything is mixed in good and then stop. We don't want to whip this for a long time. Okay, Now, you can see if you look close, let me open this to get a little better view. There's still flour around the outside, and there's still some that's not quite mixed in. That's okay. There's no need to panic at this point because we're stopping. We're going to scrape this in here, and we'll get this off of the sides. And then we have one more step. And leaving a little bit unmixed like that is perfectly fine because it'll actually help avoid over mixing when we do the next step here. One feature I do like on this that I haven't seen on mixers I've had before is the built-in timer. So it has, you can set the timer or you can just watch when you turn it on. It starts a count so that you know how long you've been going. And I'm just mixing these together some. It's not a huge deal. You don't need to like worry about it a whole lot, but if you dump it in there and they're all separated in there, you'll end up with tight groupings of the same chips in there because we're not going to stick this in here and go for a long time. We're just going to mix this to incorporate these. So you want to kind of mix them some to break them up from their two groups of dark and milk chocolate. So let's go ahead and we'll do this on a low speed. And that's it. Now we'll go ahead and scrape all this down in there, and we're going to go ahead and fold this around in here. Okay, so now what you're doing here is it's just like I said, you want to go down to the bottom, make sure you don't have any flour, dry spots, or any big thick areas like right here. There's almost no chocolate in that, so you want to mix. Just go around, make sure you got everything in there, make sure it's all got chocolate in it, or whatever you're mixing into your cookies, because this is a step that you're going to want to see on pretty much any batter, cake batter, anything. It's a good idea to just finish it off with a good scrape and fold by hand with a spatula. So now your batter is ready, your cookie dough. And we've got, for some reason I can't fathom, I bought 2 cookie sheets, which might seem not that strange. But I always rotate through 3. Always. Have 3 ready. 1 goes in, 1 moves to the next spot, and the one that just came out goes on the rack. That way you have time for that one to cool, get the cookies off of it, and get new dough scooped onto it before the next one is ready to come out of the oven. I think I'm going to go ahead with the bigger scoop on these because with the chunks, I went a little big for a small cookie. So we'll go ahead and do these. And the 3, which is a number 40. To those who have the... Now these are a smaller pan than I'm used to baking these on, because all 3 of my ovens are smaller than a normal residential oven. So I'm gonna play it by ear. These typically don't have a huge spread to them. So I'll go ahead and just put the 6 on here like I normally do. These cookies are immediately removed to the rack because of the contents of the batter. If they sit on the hot pan, they have a tendency to get over dark. on the bottoms. So when they come out, they sit on there while you put the next batch in the oven, but then they come off of the sheet onto the rack. Typically they'll sit on the pan for 3 to 5 minutes and cool before you move them to the rack, but that's not the case with this particular recipe. I'm gonna go ahead and put this first batch in once I get that out of there. I forgot even, second there, I just looked at it too and then I forgot that it was in the way. So I will go ahead and grab this out of here and move it over here. And I can put this in. And then these go for 8 to 12 minutes. So I will set this for 5 minutes to start, and then I'll check them, take a look at them, see if they're, need to be rotated. If your oven has a hot spot, then sometimes you have to rotate those in the middle of a bake so that it doesn't burn on one end or the other. Okay, so we're back. After about 9 minutes on that one, I pulled them out. They're a little dark on the bottom because I'm trying to get the oven adjusted still, and it should be better now, but this first batch did get a little dark on the bottom. Well, there you go. You can see it. But that's okay. That is goo still from being hot out of the oven. Hopefully the second batch will come out better. It's going to be kind of a learning curve, like I said, first time with this oven. So it should be better now, hopefully. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this next one because I did notice the one end is a little more dark than the other. So hopefully, like I say, the next batch should be better. We'll get it dialed in, and then next time we'll know. Okay, so we're getting there. This is the second batch. I moved the rack in the oven up to the top location. This isn't going to work so well because let's try from this side. See if I can get you situated here. But as I was saying, I moved the rack to the top position in the oven because I think it was a little too close to the flame on the bottom rack. And that was part of why the bottoms got brown so fast. Because it was literally sitting right above the burner. That's one downside to this small oven as a gas oven. I know you don't want to open your oven a lot while you're baking, but let me show you what we're talking about here. That big thing right in the middle with all the holes in it, that is the burner right under that. So the cookies were sitting like that far above the burner. So these first ones, let's see if they're cool enough to pick up now. They got a little dark on the bottom. That's okay, they still taste good. I'll eat those ones. These ones are a lot better. I'm trying to get a picture, but I can't see it because the screenshot. I don't know if you can even tell, but they're more of a golden color, which is what they're supposed to be. But anyways, I was saying before, if you leave these on the pan to cool, they do that anyway because this pan stays hot for a few minutes after it comes out. That's why they come right off and onto here. The longer it takes you to move them onto there, the more brown they are on the bottom. So now we should be pretty well figured out. That batch spent a couple of minutes on the bottom rack, so they are a little browner. Then I'm hoping this one will come out a little less brown. So if that's the case, then we're good. We'll just go through until we get all these baked. I've still got about half the batter. But we got this batch out. This is number 3. So it's this one, not that one. This one right here. You can see those are a perfect gold. And they're on here cooling. So for comparison, these are not bad. They're just a little bit dark. The first batch is a bit darker. We've got one hot spot in there. That was this spot. You can see it was the hottest spot on the pan, and again, that was right over the burner. So that one is pretty dark. I mean, it's not black. It kind of looks black on the, maybe that was this one. No, what did I do with that one? I moved it. Now I lost it. Oh, there it is. This one here, this is the one that was right there. And it's gotten pretty dark, as you can see. But it looks like we are settled in on things. So the rest of these should be, this first bunch is just a bit dark. It's not real super dark. This is a dark spot because I think this one was right there. So these two got a little overdone, but the rest of these are pretty much just slightly darker than I would like. They're not burnt, they're just a little extra dark. Let's see if this is cool enough to pick up. Oh, not quite. If I'm careful. This is perfect right there. So we'll set that back down before I smush it, because these are really soft when you take them off. I don't know if I caught the part about this. This is perfect for getting these off. They're soft, but it gets right under and gets it. And then this ramp lets them slide right off onto the rack. And these are, like I said, really soft when they first come out. But you got to get them off the pan, or they do this even if you bake them properly. Is that the one? I keep moving these and then I lose them. That's the one. Okay, so 3 of the first batch didn't quite make it. So now I've got to let this cool. If you take these off onto the rack and then you just take this and throw your next batch on, this is too hot. It'll start melting the butter and they'll get really gooey on there. So you got to let this cool off. It doesn't have to be ice cold. If you can, it helps to have the extra time to rotate the third pan in. I have it on my shopping list. This is my whiteboard shopping list and message to myself. So anyway, I've got 3 minutes left here, so I've got to scoop the next batch, which is why I like having a third pan, because if you have that extra pan, then you don't have to rush to get the next batch ready to go in. Okay, so welcome back to the kitchen here. We're getting ready to start on the next recipe we've got going. Our peanut butter chocolate chunk cookies are cooling. These ones were the last batch, so they've got them kind of spread out so they can finish cooling. Some of them are on a little plate over there, so if it looks like some are missing, that wasn't breakfast. They're just in a different spot. Okay, so here's our ingredients all laid out. We've got everything ready to go here. First off, 270 grams of all-purpose flour, or 333 grams of the 1-to-1 gluten-free, which is what I've got here. 288 grams of sugar. In here we have our 5 grams of soda and 6 grams of salt. And then these, we'll go ahead and just dump that on there, and we'll whisk that together here in a minute. 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and then 2 eggs. These are room temperature, so is the butter. This is a lot more room temperature than the other ones were, because it's coming down now. It was over 80 degrees by the time I finished the first set recipe there. So I have some windows open and some air moving, and I thought this one was open, but it's not. Let me open that. Okay, so the butter And then we have 12 ounces of chopped white chocolate. You cannot cheat on this one. Nobody makes white chocolate chips that are actually white chocolate. They're all flavored palm oil. So you need to actually get a white chocolate that's a real white chocolate. Might be different other parts of the country. Here there are two Ghirardelli's or Tony's. I don't think I have any of the Tony's one in here, but I do have some of the Ghirardelli's. So get this one or get the Tony's. Look at the back. If it has anything other than cocoa butter as the fat, then you don't want it. Try to avoid anything that has flavorings. This has vanilla extract, which is okay, that's what you want. I know Lindt is close, but they use flavoring instead of vanilla, so they're like only if I can't find anything else. So, yep, gotta get it and chop it because that's the only way to get the actual white chocolate for these. And then over here we have our strawberries. These are freeze-dried strawberries. This is 2 1.4 ounce bags. I found they come in quite a variety of sizes. This is 1.4 ounce. This isn't the one that's in here. I got the ones I'm using from Trader Joe's. Right now I'm just whisking in my dry stuff. So that's ready to go. I have my mixer back out on the counter here. It's suction cupped in place. Let's grab the bowl. That way, okay. And we'll get the paddle back on. So we're getting the butter in there. This is regular salted butter. I don't know if I mentioned it in the last recipe. The peanut butter chocolate chunk was unsalted. And the peanut butter I bought for that, I got because I found it. That's the Trader Joe's. This is the crunchy peanut butter. This is the unsalted one. I prefer that. If you like your peanuts to have the salt flavor with them, then you can get the salted peanut butter. The recipe is actually written for salted peanut butter. That's why there's only 1 gram in it and the butter is unsalted. If you have unsalted peanut butter but you want that, you can up that to 6 grams of salt in the peanut butter chocolate chunk cookie, and you can use regular salted butter also. I didn't think to mention that when we were doing it because, like I said, I like mine on the less salty side for my peanut butter cookies. And it's a good balance of flavor in there with the dark chocolate and the bitter from that and the peanuts. You don't really need the salt, but it's a personal thing. If you like that, then you can up that salt in those. So we've got the butter in there. And we want to add in our sugar. Again, that's 288 grams of sugar. And then that vanilla can go in right now. And then we're just going to close this and cream. This is what I was talking about before. It has a count on there. You can set that like a timer, or it counts up so you can watch how long it's going. And we're getting decent on that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it down, turn it off, and then I will fighting with this tripod because anyways, I was saying I'm go ahead and shut that off. I'm going to scrape the bowl down and I'm going to whip it just a little bit more. Yeah, this has a the F setting here is like for fermenting, for when you knead your bread. Oh, I hit you on the ceiling there. I don't know, I haven't really messed with that yet. From the book, makes it sound like there's actually a heater in here for rising your bread dough. I'm not sure. I haven't tried it. I haven't like turned it on there and felt to see if it gets warm or anything, but incorporating so many new pieces of equipment into a kitchen it so quickly, I haven't really had a chance to play with any of it or test out much in the way of all the features that it's supposed to have. Okay. Next we need the eggs. So we'll just add these in there. And no need to go after them individually like you typically would. This one you just dump them both in there at the same time. Then we'll just keep an eye on it, make sure. It looks like both of those yolks broke on the way in, which is good. But if they don't, then you just kind of keep an eye on them, make sure that they're incorporating. If you need to, go in there with your spatula and pop them. Okay. Now we want to go on this till it's smooth. You see right now it looks kind of broken and it'll come together. Okay, see now how it looks kind of like a cream cheese frosting. It's come together. It doesn't have that broken look. That's what you're looking for. I assume you can see that. Let me see if I can get a little more light in there. So you can see up here in the light, it's got that kind of cream cheese. It does look a little bit broken if you look close, but that's fine. That's nothing to worry about. What you want is you want this kind of cream cheese frosting look to it, not the cottage cheese liquid and solids split that it started as. That's just the eggs and the butter and the sugar coming together. That's what you want. You don't want it to be separated at this point. And then we'll just add in all at once with the flour and salt and soda. And low on this one until you get it incorporated in there. Now you can see it still looks pretty dry, but there's not like piles of flour in there. It's all come together even though they're still dry. That's what you're looking for here. Then you want to scrape everything you can get off of the sides and into the mix here. Might have to look at getting a light that I can put here shining into the bowl, because there aren't really any in a good position that I can aim them into the bowl. Somehow I don't think filming was on anyone's mind when they designed the layout of these lights. And you can see even just in the act of scraping the bowl and moving them around a little, this is taking on more of that moist look that it will end up with. Same thing as with the chocolate chunk peanut butter cookies we just did. You don't want to overmix this, and we still have the strawberries and chocolate to mix in. So that step will finish incorporating all of this and hydrating all of it while we mix those in. And you don't need to do anything with these strawberries. You don't need to soak them. You don't need to crush them, cut them up. They go in just like that. You want to get all of that in there. And then the white chocolate, it comes in squares, and what I do is every other one bar I cut those squares in half and then 3 sections, and then the next bar I do thirds and 3 sections, so you get 9, and that gives you a variety of sizes and just gives you that nice texture. And then of course you have all the little slivers to stir in and through everything. And that's the mesh you have there. So you just close this back up. And the reason you don't need to do anything with those strawberries is as they mix in, it will kind of break up those slices. So you want to give it about 30 seconds here on a low, medium low, somewhere in that. And that looks pretty good at that. I think that was 17 seconds, but 15 to 30 seconds as you need. This actually came together pretty quickly. So now we'll go ahead and scrape the paddle here and get it out of the way. Okay, and then just like before, we're going to go ahead and scrape down into the sides here. And you can, I don't know if it shows up on there very well, but you can see down in here you have this big patty where it's not a lot of anything has mixed into the cookie batter. So you want to bring that up and fold it into the rest of it so that you get strawberries and chocolate. Yeah, see there's a big section there. It looks all white. That's because there's no strawberry or anything mixed into that. And there is your cookie batter, cookie dough, cookie goo of whatever description you prefer. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and use the 3 tablespoon scoop again. The same one that we used on the other ones, because these turned out to be pretty much perfect. I was afraid they were going to be huge, but they actually worked out to be exactly what I was looking for. So these should have a pretty similar shape. These will probably spread a little bit more because they are butter based instead of half and half. So we'll go ahead and do the same because these might spread a little more, they might not. They typically spread a bit, but not huge, so these should hopefully get 6 on a cookie sheet. We may have to adjust course and do less of them on a sheet. Like I said, they are butter based, so they do spread more than the peanut butter ones typically do. But we will see how the first batch goes. Okay, this one's showing 9 to 11 minutes. So we'll go ahead and get this going. So we'll start that at 9 minutes and see what they look like. So we will go ahead and finish rearranging. These peanut butter cookies have all cooled now, so I'll go ahead and get these arranged so I can put these on there as they come out. And I'll bring you back and we'll see how they look when they're done in the oven. Okay, so we are at 11 minutes. And those look good. Now you might see some dark at the bottom. What those are is like where the strawberry is on the bottom of the cookie. And they get pretty dark. There's nothing you can really do about that. But that doesn't mean that the cookie is burnt and you don't get a burned flavor or anything with that. So I'm going to go ahead and set this 11 minutes because that's what we ended up at. And these ones are also short rest on the pan. I've put away my book. These are 30 to 60 seconds, give or take, just because of the strawberry thing on there. They do tend to get a little extra dark on the bottom. And as you can see, they did spread a little more than the peanut butter ones, but they still have sufficient space around them for comparison's sake. You can see the difference in the spread. And no, the peanut butter cookies aren't running away. I've been moving them to make space on the rack. Oh, can't do that. These do have a lot more buttery smell. It's almost got like a buttered popcorn with strawberry jam smell going on in here. And we will let those cool. We're going to have to spread these out more on the rack because they are bigger, and this rack isn't as wide as it looks because there's a pretty good size gap. And of course here there's no bar there, so it's actually just that wide there. But this is how they look when they're done. These cool, they'll kind of sink in some, kind of like a chocolate chip cookie. You get the ones where they sink and get that nice chewiness in the middle with the crisp around the outside. That's what the texture these have when they're done. Yeah. You can see the strawberries on the bottom. They look dark. It looks black on the camera, but it's actually not. It's just really dark red. And it's not a burnt flavor to that. It's more like a nice, almost like a jam taste. You don't get any like burnt notes or anything from those dark pieces of strawberry in there. And if you're wondering about the texture, because they're freeze-dried, they're hard, they're crunchy. When you bake them, they soften. They actually absorb the moisture out of the cookies, and the same thing, whatever you're baking, you can use them in muffins, whatever, and it gives them a soft, chewy texture. It's not crunchy. So basically you get the texture of a regular strawberry without all the extra moisture, and they work really nice in here. Thanks for watching. That was the white chocolate strawberry cookies and the peanut butter chocolate chunk cookies. Hope you enjoyed watching this and you enjoy the recipe. Give it a try. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you liked watching, go ahead and hit that like button. Give me a subscribe. I'll have more recipes coming in the future. Not just desserts. I have some savory recipes I'll be doing, and possibly combinations, all day cook in the slow cooker with a dessert to go along with it. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully I'll see you there next time. Thanks for watching.